4 bad car ownership habits. Do not store keys on walls closest to the exterior of your property, especially if you keep your car parked outside and not in a garage. This is just asking for the car to be stolen. Most remote start keyless entry cars work by emitting a certain signal out of them. This signal is a lot easier to mimic than you would think. It just takes 2 jerkwads and a relay box to walk within 15 feet of your key to get its signal. A common question that usually is asked is, well, what happens when my car exits the range of the original key? Won't the vehicle just stall out? While most cars do feature the ability to turn their engine off if it gets too far from the key, I think people are failing to realize the severity / the ease of stealing that keyless entry actually provides. The relay is constantly emitting the frequency it copied from your key, so the car will actually be fooled into thinking the key is nearby the whole drive. It has none the wiser. It thinks the owner is the one driving it at that moment. The reality is most cars only need to drive a few miles anyways to a chop shop where they're taken apart piece by piece and then have those parts be sold on the black market. Hardly any vehicles stolen these days are done with the intention of remaining in one piece. That's too easy for the victim to recover it or for authorities to identify it, especially with how prevalent internet culture is. Therefore, a lot of thieves have wisened up recently. It's tragic, and actually a few of my close friends here in Atlanta lost their cars to these thieves and never saw it again. Again, like I said, there's no way their car is even in one piece at this point. So how do we prevent this? As I said at the start, do not store your car keys close to walls near the exterior of your house. I noticed some people like to hang keys literally right next to the door that they exit in and out of, park their car outside their property. This is not a good habit, especially for keyless entry cars. This is just asking for some guy with a relay box to just come up and just read that signal, copy it, and there goes your car. And notice how I'm saying exterior walls. Another misunderstanding is that if they store the keys away from where the car is parked, then their car is fine. Again, as long as it's near an exterior wall, the thief can circle around the house until they finally pick up the signal. So what do you do to prevent this from happening? Try to store your keys deeper in the house and never along any of the outer edges. If you have multiple stories and you sleep on a higher floor, then take your keys up with you each night and put them in the drawers or on your nightstand. Try to get rid of the lazy habit of storing your keys literally next to where you park your car. Keep them deeper in your house, and again, if you've got a second floor, take them up with you. Now, if you live on a really small property where nowhere within the house is 15 feet from an exterior wall, then you should probably buy a key pouch or a key box made of material used to block radio frequencies. This is not a sponsorship. This is genuinely a product that costs a few bucks and will literally save and make your car practically impossible to steal from those relay box devices, because it can't mimic the signal your key creates if it can't even pick up the signal that your key makes. These RFID pouches can easily be bought online, and like I said, a few bucks can go a long way, especially if you're someone who is parking a keyless entry car outside. I highly recommend this for people on college campuses, for people in apartments, or for someone who lives on the sketchy side of town. Even if you're on the nice side of town, if any of your vehicles are stored outside, you should probably still buy one of these, unless you live in like a 3-story house, in which case, like I said, just use one of your upper floors. The second really bad car ownership habit is hitting speed bumps at full speed. I read a disturbing amount of comments from non-car people or SUV owners who say stuff like, I have an SUV, I'm immune to speed bumps. There is no such thing as immunity, especially when it comes to suspension. You can be on a 4-foot lift, but you will still take some damage if you go over these too fast. It's kind of like how there's no truly bulletproof armor, only bullet-resistant armor. Bulletproof is merely marketing, much in the way that SUVs are also really prevalent because of marketing. The reality is suspension is a wear item. It will never last forever. It will always wear down at some point. You can have speed bump resistant suspension, but it is not speed bump proof suspension. It's in your best interest to still slow down, not just for your car's maintenance sake, but also for pedestrians. I won't shut up about this in any of my bad driver videos, because it's still embarrassing how many people think that they're a good driver when they still arrogantly think that they can just plow around a 2-ton cage into a whole bunch of children. For over a century, the leading cause of children death in the United States was vehicular manslaughter. Speed bumps are usually placed in neighborhoods and near crosswalks. Slow down and save a life. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people aren't morally motivated. However, they still are money motivated. And when you do hit someone, you have to deal with insurance, and possibly court cases, and possibly jail time. Insurance is expensive. Court cases, even more expensive. Jail though? That one's not expensive from a dollar standpoint, maybe for the bailout, but if you're beyond the bailout, let's say that's gonna cost you something else. The third bad car ownership habit is delaying minor maintenance. Some of the most expensive of problems could have been fixed with the cheapest of solutions that were done years along the way instead of letting it build up and then falling apart on itself several years later. Almost all cars with proper oil changes, fluid flushes, and some cleaning here and there can be kept up like new for a good 5 to 7 years, even 10 and beyond. I used to know some cheapskate friend who would delay oil change intervals by a couple thousand miles, if not double the interval at times, and then his poor Honda ended up blowing up before it even hit 100k miles. Let me reiterate that. That's a Honda. This isn't me knocking on Honda, by the way. That's one of the most incredibly reliable cars from one of the most reputable brands. Do you think it was destroyed because Honda gave him a bad car, or do you think it was destroyed because he was an incredibly lazy moron who just couldn't do the most basic of maintenance? And unfortunately, a lot of cars from these reputable brands known for making reliable vehicles are being destroyed left and right by an increasingly lazier consumer culture in America. A $40 oil change at the right time goes a long way in keeping your car running. I'm not some stickler who's gonna tell you to do it right on the interval or a little bit before it. If you miss it by 50 or a couple hundred miles, your car won't magically explode, okay? You'll be fine. I'm not telling you to be super on time with them, but don't be stretching it a few thousand, if not doubling the intervals. Like, well, some of those mother truckers, they don't have any right complaining when their car breaks later, when they full well know that they had a chance to stop that $5,000 engine replacement if they just spent $40 once a year. Fluid flushes aren't as frequent, but they're equally as easy and cheap, whether it's your transmission at 60 to 120k miles for most cars, or your brake fluid, in which case please check that one, because the way your brakes on your cars work is by building pressure via fluid to engage its braking. If that breaks, then you ain't braking, but your car ain't the only thing that will break when your brakes break, because your insurance bout to deal with your bank, and that's bout to break too. So make sure you flush your brakes so you don't fail to break your brakes and break someone else's car because you couldn't brake, so now you break in the bank. Brake. Sorry, just wanted to say brake one more time. All fluid colors can be checked from your car very easily. Here's a chart of brake fluid colors, and here's a chart of transmission fluid colors. Here's what a brake fluid master cylinder should look like. Chances are your car has one in its engine bay, and it's brightly colored and tells you to open it when your car is cold, aka please don't open this right after you're done driving your car. It will likely just build pressure and accidentally spew some out. Do this before you drive your car, rather. Don't do this after you drive your car. That's probably the easiest way. Just check the color. Usually the easiest way is to use like a clear napkin and just dip a little bit of it in. That way you don't leave too much remnants inside of it. Again, we don't need to be sticklers here. I know someone is in the comments, but color is somewhat good within this range. You're fine. If it's getting closer to the bad range, make a mental note that you should change it soon. If it's already at the bad range, you should change it now. Otherwise, you might rear end someone in traffic. And like I said, if you thought your brakes not braking is bad, wait until you break someone else's car and see your bank break because of the insurance bill. Again, none of this maintenance is hard. As long as you're just diligent, you can very easily check all of these things within just minutes. I'm not expecting any of my viewers to be mechanics, but I do expect people to actually realize how expensive a car is and how people have been taking them for granted. Again, modern consumer culture has gotten so much lazier. It's crazy how many cars I see on the road with burning oil, spewing smoke, and ending up on the side of the road. They probably had 3 chances ahead of time the year before to stop how it ended up the year right now. Don't be like them. Give your car a good look at least once a year for anything dumb. The final bad car ownership habit is driving the moment your car starts up. You shouldn't start them up instantly and start driving right away. You especially shouldn't just rev the crap out of their engine right away or drive at high RPM and just gun the throttle. You still need to usually sit about 10 to 15 seconds to just let oil and let other lubricants reach everywhere they need to reach on your vehicle before moving. You can actually hear your RPM drop a bit when the engine is ready to go. Like I said, it's also an audio cue, so you can always listen for the car's sound, and you can just watch the RPM gauge. It's really neat to do. Once you figure out what the cue is, you'll easily pick up on it and you'll know when your car's ready based on the sound alone or based on seeing the RPM needle drop to where you're expecting it to drop to. I will say, however, that the myth of waiting minutes to start a car is not true, as almost all modern cars are fuel injected and not carbureted. So 10 to 15 seconds is usually good enough. However, during winter time, you can probably go maybe 30 seconds, 1 minute, or a couple minutes if you live somewhere super cold. In truth, you might be scraping your windshield of snow, or you might be waiting until your heat warms up regardless, so you probably are spending that minute anyways, so you might not even be realizing it, but a minute or 2 minutes has already passed, so you're probably okay on that front. This entry, and honestly this whole video in general, I don't want to scare anyone with anything. Don't think super hard about these things, but definitely don't act like they don't exist. If you haven't been doing these and you know you haven't been doing it, then give it a little bit thought. Like I said, don't overthink it. That's kind of the vibes I'm aiming for. It's detrimental for your car's health if you just drive it immediately the moment it starts, for the same reason why your coach doesn't pull you out of bed and shout you to sprint full speed instantly. No shower, no stretching, no eating, no realizing what's even going on, no rubbing your eyes awake. They're just telling you to hit the ground and run. Yeah, that ain't fun. So it's not fun for your car either, so let it rub itself awake and stretch that oil out. Anyways, I hope you've had fun watching this video. If you've got any suggestions, I'd love to see them in the comments below, as I might revisit this for a part 2. If you love automotive content, then make sure to like this video and subscribe. Other than that, share it with your pet narwhal. See y'all next time, Blade Angel out.